Hi, everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad, Gustafson, and I share two books.
Jen, when I go like this, do that horn thing that truckers do.
Exactly. I have no idea what that had to do with anything, but I'm happy to do it anytime. So
It's just a new move I discovered on Zoom. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. When you do that, I'm going to make that noise no matter what's happening. No, we're so glad to have you here, even though we're being silly. I think we have quarantine brain at this point, which I'm sure most of you all do too. But one of the best, brightest spots in our week is the ability to share what we're reading with you in the hopes that it'll inspire you to keep reading wherever you are and what you're doing, or maybe even share these books with your kiddos, right?
Hashtag truth. Yes.
Oh, what do you got to share with us this week, Brad?
Yeah, well, I've been reading something really unique and out of my wheelhouse, Jen.
Oh, I'm excited.
So for my book talk, if you like reading, oh, that's a lot. That's too big. Everyone likes reading, right? But if you like writing or reading about writing or learning about different kind of the art of writing, this book that I have is for you. And I was thinking about this. I don't think this is just for a book for people who like writing blogs or journals or working on books. I think it also can be language arts teachers or reading teachers in schools. Because I was thinking about myself before I share this book. I taught second grade before I was an elementary principal, and kind of learned language arts through the teacher's manual. You're probably cringing on the inside right now, but like I learned about personification, and the limits of my knowledge of teaching that were really in segments of the week-long scope and sequence, all the way down to the lesson of the day. I never looked at things from a broader, like literary perspective. So this book I've really been getting into, and it is called The Art of Subtext by Charles Baxter. And it's a fascinating read about not just the plot in stories, but like the unspoken plot in books. And so I've just been gobbling this up. We had a funny moment. This is warning everyone, dad joke here. Funny moment in our family for me, not for everyone else, but I was working with one of our kiddos on behavior skill, if you will, doing a little coaching. And I softened the coaching at the end of it. I can tell I'm getting looked at right now by the coachee. But anyway, I softened the coaching. I softened the coaching at the end by saying, it's okay. We all have things we're working on. Your dad's working on the art of subtext and staging in his writing. And I just said it with a straight face, and then I busted out laughing because it was so ridiculous. But that is what I'm learning and working on and stuff. To live in this house, Jen, it's a crazy, crazy, crazy place. But this book is really spectacular. And just the super quick summary, it breaks down subtext into kind of 5 domains that you can sharpen and think about differently. So I've even had the chance to start applying a little bit. It's helped me think about writing. And I think now I'm excited. That's always the trade-off when you read kind of a PD book, then you're not engrossed in novels and other things. But I'm excited now the next time I read, I think I'm going to enjoy books even more, if that's possible, because I'll be looking for the art of writing and be able to identify things a little bit more too. So I do recommend you read this now if you fit into the category that I explained earlier and kind of in the hook.
Here's the thing, Brad. I think you hit on something important. I mean, all people, but specifically teachers, educators, librarians. I think the one thing that all great educators have in common is that they're always learning. You talked about how you thought I might be cringing because you had to learn about language arts in the teacher's manual. Listen, I had a degree in English. I have loved reading and writing my entire life. And when I landed in my first 8th grade classroom at Cook Middle School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, represent.
Wait, let's get it ready.
I felt like looking at the very limited materials I had, looking at the information I had about my students, I immediately thought, one thought kept me up at night is I have no idea how to do this. Even though I had spent my whole life kind of preparing for that moment, I felt totally unprepared when it arrived. I think all new teachers feel that same way, where they have to learn that, they have to learn the content, how to deliver it to the kids that they have, because what you learn in school is kind of, it's theoretical, and because you, as someone who has been to college, who are pursuing education, you like learning, you like being in a classroom. That's different from a lot of the kids you will teach. So you have to think about the content in a whole different way. So to me, that's the one thing all great educators have in common, is they're always learning. It's when you get there and decide not to stop learning because you already know everything, I think it's the real problem.
It makes me wish I was a better, I think in college I started to turn into a better learner and appreciated, like almost as a hobby, taking classes. I'm not saying on day one, but in high school, it definitely wasn't the case. Like I probably would have been the person, depending on the class. If it was an art class, I would take it. No matter the elective, I would take it. But I would be the one looking for the books, The Great Gatsby for Dummies, or just the summaries, or finding out ways. I'd probably invest more time not reading the class novel than actually reading it. But the irony is this Baxter, and by the way, I found out he's a professor at the U of M, I think, or teaches in the cities, which was a cool little connection. We call it the cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul here. But he cites a lot of historical, is that the right word? Classic literature, and breaks apart. And so Gatsby happened to be one that he talked about. It actually has me want to go back and read. I never thought I would say this, but I kind of want to go back and read those now that I actually, my identity and literacy has been forged a little bit more, and I'm not being forced to read it. I think that's probably a difference too compared to high school.
You just weren't ready for it then. That's all.
I wasn't ready for it. Thank you. Yeah. You're always so gracious, Jen.
No, I mean, I just think those are universal things, like sometimes the things that we might feel, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, that I might feel ashamed of or embarrassed to admit, especially, like on a broadcast to thousands of people.
Oh, right. We're recording? I thought this was a pre-show.
Yeah, it probably feels like a pre-show to some folks, but I think those things are like universal truths, like the things that we might be embarrassed to share. The reason why it's important to share them is because someone else out there is feeling the same way, like those are things we have in common. It's important for us to share them. So, well, that's great. Hey, because Brad, we have sidetracked a lot. Will you just hold up your book one more time and repeat the cover and the title?
Yeah, it's called The Art of Subtext. I'm going to get really close to the camera so you can see do you see the gradated, obviously very purposeful because it's the story behind the text. And then I just got a quick question, Jen. So when I read PD learning type books, do you what I do is I just destroy with ideas and things I want to apply and page numbers and stuff. Do you do what's your process when you do that?
Well, I tell you what, I used to.
Or does that make your librarian heart cringe as well?
Not at all. It does not at all. It's just because I tend to loan those books out and never get them back, it feels like. I have started, instead, I use a zillion PostIt notes. I'm a PostIt note person, because then if I want to give them away, I can take out my notes. You know what I mean? So that's what I do that way. But I have had plenty of copies that look just like that. And not just PD books. I annotate a lot of books because I just feel inspired to write something down as a result.
I think it would be fun to read a book after you read it and see your PostIt notes. Anyway,
I'm not sure the world is ready. I'm not sure. But
all right, what do you got? What do you got for us?
It's a good segue because I've been taking some notes about the book that I just read. And for people who have read it also, they'll understand the very specific reasons behind these notes. I can't give too much of it away, but I want you to know I've been taking notes in my green notebook here that says Rethink on the front. And the notes I have been taking have all been, I'm not trying to open the page here, sorry, in green. And I'm not going to focus too much on these, but I'm just going to show folks I've been taking my notes in green. And that's important because green is the favorite color of the main character in the book I read this week called The List of Things That Will Not Change by Rebecca Stead. And people who know me know me well, know that Rebecca Stead's book, When You Reach Me, is one of my all-time favorite books ever.
Mm.
I've read it many, many times. I never, when I do read it, there's not a single time I've read it where I don't laugh, I don't cry, I don't wish that I lived in the story. I don't, it's one of those books that I have recommended to kids thousands and thousands of times. One of my very favorite all-time books. And that's good and bad because it's great because now I have this forever book in my heart and on my shelf, that I can get a lot of joy from. But the negative side of that is that every time Rebecca Stead comes out with a new book, even though I don't want to, I compare it to When You Reach Me. Even though I know that that's unfair, even though I could never, ever in my life, no matter how much I tried, even write one When You Reach Me, never mind expect someone to write two of them, right? So I say all that because while the list of things that will not change isn't quite a When You Reach Me, boy, oh boy, is it good. It is really, really good. And I'm so excited to share it with folks. It's about a girl named Bee, whose parents, really at the center of this book is her parents' divorce. And how, when they divorced, they gave her a green spiral notebook and a green pen. And together they started a list called The Things That Will Not Change. At the top of that list was Mom loves you, Dad loves you, we will always love each other. And then as the book goes on, Bee continues to write things down in her list of things that will not change as a way to comfort her, like these buoys to hold on to in a sea that gets very, very stormy. But the truth is that a lot of things are changing for Bee. Her parents have divorced, her dad's getting ready to get remarried. Her cousin has had a terrible accident, is in the hospital, and they don't really know what's wrong with her. That's kind of part of the mystery of the book, so I can't give that away. Simultaneously, Bee, who has eczema, has started experiencing a lot of anxiety and worry, and it is manifesting itself in a number of really unhealthy ways. So she's had to start therapy also. And so all of these things are changing. And for Bee, the one thing that she's trying to cling to is this list of things that won't change. And oh, it's so beautifully written. There are obviously some very sad and deep and powerful moments, but oh my goodness, there are also some really funny moments in this book. And I, in my notes, started to write things that are changing for Bee. And then I also wrote my own list of things that will not change. And at the very, very top, it's I love this book. That will not change. So it is the list of things that will not change by Rebecca Stead. And I think you should read it right now.
That's fantastic.
So good.
I love how you said, and it really resonated at the end, how you put the exclamation point on that with at the top of your list. I love this book. Or that was really drove it all home.
It's so good. And I also love the fact that I don't want to mention any other books names, but recently I've been noticing a trend in books for sort of that upper elementary group, books that are really, really long. Several books last year that were really popular and that I really liked a lot, that really were targeted for, say, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, were 300 plus page books. And for some kids, boy, that's wonderful to be able to carry around a 300 page book in the 4th or 5th grade. Like that's a summit of a mountain that person has reached, right? But for some kids, that many pages is really intimidating. Like that's an intimidating book for a 4th or 5th grader, or even a 6th or 7th grader who's a striving reader. And so this book is rich and wonderful, and there's so much to learn from it and so many great conversations, and it's all in just at about 200 pages. So it's really accessible, and many of those pages are letters or journal entries. So there's just a lot of accessibility in there without being oversimplified. So I really loved it.
Yeah, that really connected with me because I could see some kiddos at the elementary level they might actually steer away from a book that long, potentially. Others might carry it around like a badge of honor and maybe even not read it. But
Right.
but then there are some people, and even as an adult, when I get into a book I love and don't want it to be over,
Sure.
like, please write a 500-page book just so I can keep going. Or like, as you were kind of sharing at the end there, I thought, how cool would it be to have emergency text? Like, here's an extra bonus chapter when you finish this book so
Yes.
you don't have to sit and read the author bio. And like when I read Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise, I'm just going and buying Slurpees just because I need to carry the character in the book with me. Just give us like an emergency chapter just to.
Exactly. I need something to carry with me. No, I totally get it. I totally get it. And that's the thing. There's so many different types of readers. And that's why we need so many different types of books, because you just don't know what book is going to be the book for that kid. Which is why it's so important for us to be readers and to have in our tool belt just tons and tons of books at the ready that we can recommend when that moment arises. But for some kiddos who maybe haven't found that book yet, a 400, 500 pager might be a lot to try to swallow. So I just appreciated this book for a lot of reasons, but that particular type of reader I kept thinking about when I was reading it. So.
Nice. And in other news, speaking of that perfect book, I saw Alan Gratz released the cover reveal for his next one. And I didn't think it was possible to be more excited than all the other ones. But this next one, oh my goodness, when is that thing coming out?
Not soon enough.
Yeah.
That's the answer, not soon enough. But Alan Gratz is like a machine. You know, we are familiar with, or I'm not going to say we, but his latest books, his most recent books, those that have come out in the last 5 or 6 years, are absolutely his most famous and well-known ones. But he's written like 20 books. And because he's a North Carolina guy, I knew Alan Gratz from way back when. If you haven't read one of his older books called The Brooklyn Nine, you absolutely should, Brad.
Okay.
It might tide you over until the latest one comes out. It's not a war book, which a lot of his like books have military history, but it was on the North Carolina Battle of the Books routine or slate for many years, and the kids just loved it. I think it's one of his greatest, but it's kind of an unsung one.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyway, well, look at this. It's just like us having a conversation with people watching.
Yeah, I know. It's still on. Should we wind it down in style?
That's right.
Jen, give me one of those, will you? I want to practice this. Oh, never mind. I got to do this off air. That was horrible. Yeah, that's harder than I thought it would be.
Listen, you know, my favorite part of all this is just imagining your kids off camera looking at you like, oh,
Actually, my kids appear very gracious right now. My wife is kind of wondering like what she got into nearly 20 years ago.
I love it. Well, listen, let's end this as though we know what we're doing by saying if folks want to rewatch this video or any of the other videos we've created, or probably even more impressively, check out the list of all the books we have recommended, hundreds of them, since this webcast started. Where can they go, Brad?
bit.ly/read_this_now. It is a treasure trove of book talk, goodness, and book recommendations.
It is. Well done, my friend. And to everyone out there, happy reading. We'll see you next week.
Great to talk, Jen.